we may use him later. So everybody's waving. And Elliot, I'm not displaying your presentation in full screen. So when you're ready, we have your face in full screen.
I have started the share. Are you seeing it?
Yeah.
Just turn on the volume here.
All right.
Here.
All right, bud. I need to go to. Yeah. All right, we got it.
Try and talk, Elliot.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is Elliot Sloane. I'm glad to join you from Florida for the IUPSM conference in Prague. I'm going to talk a bit about management and design of successful, safe, and reliable integrated medical device information and communication systems. It's a project I've been working on for, I'm afraid to say, a couple of decades now, but we're making good progress. And it opens new opportunities for clinical engineering and our professional development, as well as improved patient care worldwide. This is a brief outline of the topics that I'll be talking about. And by way of introduction, many of you probably know me, so I'm not going to repeat my background and information, but I've worked in this field with the American College of Clinical Engineering, IFMBE, HIMSS, the Health Informatics Systems, and other organizations. And so I'm a clinical engineer who works in the computer and information sciences field, and I'm a professor at 2 universities. I teach courses in health information technology, e-health, ethics, cybersecurity, medical device, interoperability, and related topics. Our clinical engineering targets are moving even as we succeed in this field, because in very serious ways we're victims of our own success. The more technologies we integrate and use and leverage to improve clinical care, the more our management portfolio increases and the more complexity we have to deal with. Maybe mention to you, Tom Judd, perhaps you need to mute your microphone because your keyboard strokes are being recorded. Unless we're willing to give up as clinical engineers, we're going to have to become a lot more nimble because the life cycle of technologies in hospitals is a life cycle that exists for decades, not for 1 or 2 years. In the commercial or a consumer market, smartphone software is updated every 6 months to a year. But in the healthcare field, we can't afford to do that. So we have some real challenges in managing stable, reliable systems in healthcare. We have made some really valuable progress over the past 15 years. We've worked together with many other communities to develop a shared vision with the health organization, with IFMBE, with the clinical engineering community globally, to integrate clinical technologies with ICT, information and communication technologies. And this has the potential and is actually delivering improved care to the point of care, to the patient. And that adds great opportunities. It opens the door to artificial intelligence, advanced informatics, data visualization, but there's no free lunch. The more complexity we add, the more our management obligations continue to expand. In 2001, I hosted some of the first tracks and publications about this integration. And we talked with chief information officers and CEOs of major hospitals around the United States at that time, and major vendors like HP, Agilent, and talked about what was needed in order to deal with this fusion of medical device technologies and information technologies. And we looked at building bridges. I called it, the golden age for clinical engineering. So now we're nearly 2 decades past that. And in fact, many of the concepts that were described at that time are being realized. Who could have dreamed of iPhones, Android, iPads, cloud computing, Internet of Things? Those were conceptually possible, but they were still advanced dreams and perspectives of what the marketplace saw as unfolding. And today we have this actually happening. In 2001, we had just a boatload of standards. We still have a boatload of standards today, but today we have at least converged many of the standards through AEMI, ISO, ASTM, ITU, into a reduced portfolio of standards that is manageable for clinical engineers. I've been the co-chair of integrating the healthcare enterprise for about 15 years and now emeritus co-chair. So we've worked very hard with the entire global community to come up with a reasonably understandable set. And if any of you want to know about this, I'll be glad to share information directly. A lot of it's open source, it's free, it's available to you to use. The challenges we have in the evolving hospital information and technology management now are becoming more ICT, information and communication technology challenges, because we have many different modalities connected through clouds that are global, provided by, could be Alibaba, could be Amazon, could be Microsoft, or proprietary small vendors, and it's through various hospital departments and multiple hospital organizations and even ministries of health. So we have a lot of interface engines to deal with, and in any one of these, as we know as clinical engineers, we have to deal with the risk factors to ensure safety. And actually, if you look at this slide, this is actually a slide from 2001. This was where we perceived the market going almost 2 decades ago. And this is what it looks like with my friends at Hangzhou in the Children's Hospital, my colleagues in Texas Children's Hospital, my colleagues in Europe are all seeing this convergence happening. So the challenges we are dealing with are very, very broad. Again, we couldn't imagine apps. We couldn't imagine 99-cent or even free apps that deal with blood glucose monitoring, diabetes management, an entire field of family and personal apps that are being modified to create essentially an artificial pancreas by the user community. And again, I can provide websites and links and references for any of you who are interested in this. Our entire regulatory system in the US and internationally is changing to make space for these flexible and extensible health augmentation and healthcare tools and technologies. And we as clinical engineers have to be able to take ownership, because nobody else, frankly, is going to take ownership of the responsibility of managing secure and reliable systems. We have almost every dimension of health technologies in various stages of interoperability and integration, including implanted defibrillators, infusion pumps. We have connections to public health, community health, and other tools. Again, I can provide any information that you need, and it's a global process. No one country owns this. This is a team effort with contributions continuing from around the world. Simultaneously, we have more and more medical devices that are being introduced into the marketplace that are being sold at the consumer point, whether it's Alibaba, Amazon, or other vendors. We have products that are fundamentally medical devices. Many are now approved by the Food and Drug Administration in the US and in Europe and in Japan and elsewhere for physician and hospital application. And some of them, such as the one in the center, this Proteus device, actually is now a combined drug device product that monitors the consumption of medicines by the patient and the physiologic reactions, well-being, and care of the patient. So this is a very dynamic, exciting field. Many of these devices are now available for as little as $49. In the upper right-hand corner, we have a blood pressure monitor. It's FDA cleared. It's something that when I was at the Consumer Electronics Show this year in Las Vegas, there's an entire building now full of medical and health applications, and devices like that one in the upper right, in fact, across most of these, are available for $49 to $100 US. The holy grail, if you will, the goal that we're striving for is to have all of the data interoperable or shareable with a single or one or a limited number of interfaces. And that is still a real challenge. In the Consumer Electronics Show, The market is clearly moving towards more and more proprietary standards. Every new vendor wants to have their own way of capturing, controlling, and limiting the data that's available so that they can sell cloud services. But there are products like iHealth and others that are making their data available through the cloud in simple, basic formats like CSV for Excel access, PDF, and more device manufacturers are moving to IHE or continuous standards to allow interoperability of data. So devices are being moved to an environment that allows sharing. We're doing a lot of testing of this worldwide in Europe, Japan, Korea, in the United States, and there's actually conformity testing and certification going on in some of these marketplaces. The next level of problems is the cybersecurity challenges, because all of this data exists in an ecosystem of communications and informatics that is vulnerable to cyber attack. And we have issues with entire hospitals. The entire British, UK national health system was taken out for a day. The entire German Deutsche Telekom system was taken out for a day by cybersecurity hacks using the Internet of Things. So we have a number of layers of concerns that we as clinical engineers have to deal with. And there are a lot of vectors, there are a lot of attack points, there are a lot of risks that we have to be concerned at the cloud level, at the data storage level, at the app level. There's also issues related to the fundamental data storage and sharing. This was the UK incident that happened just over a year ago, where the 16 hospitals were shut down with a ransomware attack. But this is only one example. The entire national health system had been shut down just prior to this event in May of 2017 due to the Internet of Things Mirai worm virus. So cybersecurity, as we look at it as clinical engineers, has a higher bar, has a higher set of requirements. When you teach cybersecurity in most information settings, you teach about CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But our world includes safety. We have life-critical information. You don't have to go very far to imagine a patient who has, in a diabetic shock and a coma, if their communication system cannot promulgate an alarm, if the patient can't be located because the communication systems have been blocked, a hacker has interfered with the network management system or the alarm communication system, then the patient can die. There is evidence available from Symantec and the Food and Drug Administration that this has in fact happened in hospitals and mobile settings. So we clinical engineers have to fight the good fight. We're the only technical expert in the field who really understands these issues well. Physicians will share our passions, nurses will share our passions. Certainly, chief information officers and IT professionals can understand the issue, but they do not understand the clinical technologies or the environment of care that we're responsible for. So we're part of the leadership and team playing. We also have an issue with fiscal management, sound fiscal management, because in healthcare, our technologies have to persist for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. We don't have the luxury of ripping out and replacing the entire hospital technology infrastructure every 2 or 3 or 5 years, which is what an automobile manufacturer or a food services organization is able to do. The cost of ICT are soaring. The electronic medical record costs in the United States are soaring, and that's just a piece of the entire information infrastructure. There are hospitals in the U.S. that are paying as much as $3,000 or $4,000 per patient bed to add adapters to their medical monitoring and management systems for each patient. That's too large a cost, especially with updates constantly being promulgated by the vendors, Microsoft, Oracle, Linux, and others. So the whole total cost of ownership is soaring. There are a lot of tools. I have entire presentations I'll be glad to share with any of you on managing the total cost of ownership. Ultimately, as we see this field continue to grow, evolve, as Internet of Things and other mobile technologies are added, we simply are adding to substantially the long-term costs of ownership, and we need to be aware of and evolving our clinical engineering management tools to deal with this. So in closing, we are in a golden age. It's actually a golden set of decades. The years ahead will include artificial intelligence, self-managing medical devices and technology, interactive systems with users, clinicians, physicians, patients, families. And we as clinical engineers have to develop more tools. We have to deal with quality management. There are a number of management tools for these complex systems of systems. We're not the first to arrive at this issue or opportunity. The military, government agencies, and others have been looking at this for decades with other systems. But in healthcare, we need to learn some new tools like the V model, which deals with verification and validation virtually simultaneously of systems, subsystems, modules, individual software apps. And we have to adapt this to a language for clinical engineering that allows us to teach our colleagues and biomedical technicians, physicians, nurses, procurement, and others how to ensure that the systems that are used for patient care are safe and reliable. I have the privilege of publishing a chapter in a book edited by Ernesto Iadanza and Roberto and Fabriaso on clinical engineering from devices to systems. And there is a whole chapter that has largely open source free software or books that can be used for this kind of training. So I encourage you to take a look at that chapter because I think it would be valuable for your own systems and development. We also have to develop agile methods to deal with rapid cycles. So there is an entire issue hidden within these evolving environments where new innovations have to be adopted quickly. We're not used to doing that in clinical engineering. We're used to looking at implementing new technologies over years, but we don't have years. If an artificial pancreas or a new medical device combination with a drug is introduced, and if it has life-influencing, life-improving consequences for a community, such as Ebola vaccine distribution, then we may need to evolve our tools at a much more rapid pace, even though you can't change systems that quickly. We have to stop bickering with other specialists in this field, such as information systems, programming, systems analysts, cybersecurity. We have to collaborate with them and teach them how to be our partners. And so Stephen Covey has written a whole lot of very valuable books on how to sharpen your saw and how to be a better, smarter person than you were in this field. I teach in the college and the university level, and I can tell you all my students are digital natives. They will write an app and develop a web solution in a matter of weeks that in the past took years to design and develop. So we need to figure out a way how to mobilize these young digital natives and put them to work in our clinical engineering field. And they're very passionate about improving healthcare. They quickly understand the benefit and value to their families and communities. So I've told you a lot, and the reality is we are achieving great miracles. We are allowing amazing clinical interventions, whether it's at the birth of tiny premature infants or 100 and 105-year-old elders. All of these technologies are advancing the capability of improving and sustaining life and the quality of life around the planet. You're not alone. We're not alone in this. There are many partners and collaborators. We have a lot of information available online. This web link is changing. I'll be glad to help you find the new web link. Again, send me an email and I'll be glad to help you. Thank you for joining me in this presentation today. I look forward to working with you in the decade ahead in developing new and innovative ways to manage these technologies. Have a great meeting for the rest of the meeting in Prague.
So Elliot, I know you need a long nap after coming up from overseas. Couple questions and then we'll let you go. From
yes.
Anybody step up to the mic, and if needed be, I'll repeat it. We're thinking. We're tired too.
Well, I think the important thing is to let people know that I will do my best to respond by email to everybody in the community. And these questions and innovations and ideas are going to evolve. And I think that under IFMBE, ultimately, we're probably going to have a task force that is solely going to be dealing with this, because it's a fundamental part of the successful innovation and evolution of our field and of clinical care worldwide.
I will make an observation. Thank you, Elliot. Basically, you're exactly right. One piece of new evidence is the World Health Assembly, with WHO met at the end of May. They were nice enough through our Mark Disson IFMBE rep to make some comments about the clinical engineering success stories and so forth. But I read the minutes that Mark outlined with his statement, and he said the World Health Assembly was all about the digital age coming and the digital tools, and that the 200-member countries better get ready for that. So we're all fastening our seatbelts.
It's an exciting time, and I have to say that the young professionals bring a skill set and a comfort of facile adaptability that is exciting. And we don't have to learn all of these things. We have to bring younger professionals, including physicians and nurses, into this field and empower them. And I think that's the most valuable area that we're probably missing today. We're trying to, I think, keep it too close to our professional skill set instead of figuring out ways to broaden the umbrella and the tent. And that's where I think ultimately the solutions are going to have to come from.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your meeting.
All right. Signing off.